3, and it's time to go through your papers now. Joining us now is former Chief Secretary to the Treasury, David Menner, and writer and journalist Emma Wolfe. So, Emma, let's start with you, shall we? We're going to go a little bit different. We're not going to be talking about the midterms or Gavin Williamson just yet. We're going to be talking about Meghan Markle's podcast.
Yeah.
Now, have you been listening? Because it really is a unique...
It really is quite an experience. I have listened to a few episodes and tried to stop myself laughing. This is Meghan Markle. Her Spotify podcast is called Archetypes, and she talks to a series of, inspirational women in it. And in the latest episode, she's been exploring the term BITCH. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to say that on TV at this time in the morning. But anyway, she's saying basically that difficult women, when you call a woman difficult, it basically means that you're awesome. And that, labelling a woman as difficult is a way of sort of downplaying her really awesome qualities. Awesome is this word that is used a lot in this podcast.
I'd feel very differently if I was called a BITCH than how I'd feel to be called a difficult woman.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if I almost take it as a compliment to be told it depends in the context.
Well, I think all of it is pretty sexist anyway.
Yeah.
Why should you be, it's a bit like Theresa May being called a bloody difficult woman. But Meghan is saying that basically difficult is code word for the B word. She doesn't use the word bitch, she says the B word.
Right.
And that often, these qualities such as persistence and resilience and all of these things, which I think are awesome qualities in women, strong opinions, standing up for yourself, all of those things are kind of bungled into this label of difficult or bitch, basically. It's a good point about female ambition, about how if you're persistent and ambitious, you're seen as pushy, bossy, all of those words that we know are used, especially in politics, are used about women who are very hardworking, who are very ambitious.
So you agree with her on this podcast then, on the theme that difficult women, it's actually, it can be a good thing?
I mean, I wouldn't say I agree with Meghan Markle on much, but I think she has a point.
Is that the key then? So what she's saying might be right, but the fact that it comes from her,
exactly.
A lot of women might
that
think...
immediately discredits it. But what I find extraordinary, you see, is that some men are whatever we want to call them, and some men are difficult because there are things in life to be difficult about. Some women are difficult because there are things that people should be difficult about. Other people are difficult because they can't help themselves. They're congenitally difficult. This idea that somehow you could just say, have stereotypes like that suggests that this woman is trying too hard. And I know I shouldn't say this, and I'd say this if she was a man with even more vigour. Her reach is exceeding her grasp on a lot of these things. I just don't think she's up to the analyses that she's trying to put across in the interest of getting money out of gullible American producers.
Yeah, and I think the sense with Meghan is very much that she feels so kind of hard done by. She feels that she's battling against the world, battling the royal family, all of that, whereas a lot of the outside world looks at her and sees a beautiful, privileged, very, very wealthy, very, very comfortable woman who is, kind of asking for a lot of sympathy, a lot of pity.
And what she's never appreciated is this. Look, I spent 11 years as a minister, and a lot of the time you trog around with members of the royal family, very nice people for the most part, doing a job that would bore you rigid. Doing a job that would bore you rigid, going on visits, smiling, being there. And she never wanted to buy into that. She wanted immediately to become Princess Diana. And, it was never going to work out for her because the royal family is about service to others. Meghan is interested in service to, herself.
Yeah. Well, staying with the royal theme, David, you've chosen this story in The Telegraph about Prince Andrew's accuser in relation to her lawsuit against Alan Dershowitz. What's the latest plot twist in
the latest you find in a number of papers, here in The Telegraph. Prince Andrew's accuser, Virginia Giuffre, yesterday dropped a lawsuit against a high-profile lawyer and one-time Donald Trump attorney, saying she may have made a mistake in accusing him of sexually abusing her. Now, Alan Dershowitz, I know, I've had dinner with him on several occasions. He's a brilliant man. He's a brilliant lawyer. I never for a moment believed that, he was kind of into...
Well, it's not beyond the realms of possibility because someone's brilliant that they haven't been a sexual deviant.
I know, but it never struck me as credible. And the interesting thing is Dershowitz fought it right from the start, and in the end she's had to admit that she was probably wrong. Now, that is not an important story over here, except what does it do? It gives Andrew and those who are supporting Andrew the opportunity to say, well, maybe she was wrong about me as well, except Alan Dershowitz always made clear he wasn't going to pay her a penny. In fact, he said that they were going to have to go to court and he wasn't going to accept an apology and whatever. Well, he's 84. I don't blame him for accepting that kind of settlement. But if Andrew thinks that throws him a lifeline, I say it doesn't.
Right. Even if her credibility is cast into doubt, you still think he's damaged goods.
Why did he pay her 12 million?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, Alan Dershowitz refused to pay her any money, and right from the start said, you know, it wasn't him. Andrew, at the end of the day, mixed with her and mixed with, you know, her Svengali and with the awful Ms. Maxwell, and he is now finished. The Duke of York, finished. Apparently he was in tears when the news was broken to him, but I'm amazed that he could have been under any doubt. But, I mean, I take the view, and no doubt people will want to comment on this, there is no way back for him. And the fact that she has made a mistake, so she now says, over Alan Dershowitz does not throw him a lifeline, at least I hope not.
Well, the money's been paid now, as you say, David. Emma, should we have a look at COP and the comments by President Zelensky of Ukraine saying that climate change cannot be tackled collectively whilst war is raging?
Yeah.
Interesting comments from him.
Yeah, really interesting. So this is a video address yesterday to world leaders at COP in Sharm el-Sheikh. The president of Ukraine is saying there can be no effective climate policy without peace. And he makes the point that the Russian war has brought about this energy crisis. What it's doing is it's forcing many, many countries to resume coal-fired power generation in order to lower energy prices. It sort of highlights the issue of Russian dominance over energy, also the fact that they have this stranglehold in supplying gas to many European countries who are represented at COP. Interestingly, Putin is not at the summit. There's, I think, around 100 world leaders there, but President Putin is, unsurprisingly, perhaps not at COP27. But yeah, obviously it brings together these two, you know, really the two overwhelming crises of our times, which are, you know, the Russia-Ukraine conflict, the energy crisis as well, and climate change.
Mm-hmm. Can we talk about the NHS, David? Because,
yeah,
of course, we're talking about all of the stealth taxes and top rate of tax here, there and everywhere, and all the difficult and unpalatable decisions that have to be made. We've got a former health secretary now as Chancellor. You'd think he could be looking at these bureaucrats.
Say a former health secretary in the jungle.
Oh, well, that too. But
they get everywhere.
They do, yeah. But the Telegraph talking about all these very well-paid bureaucrats in the NHS.
Yeah, I mean, this is quite frightening, really, that apparently there are over 500 who are, including 430 in the health service itself, on salaries of at least 100,000, and of those, 100 are on at least 150,000, with salaries reaching up to 260,000. And it's interesting that it's the health secretary himself who's asked for these to be published. You see, we assume when money is spent on the health service, it all goes to front-end services. It doesn't. It goes to sustain what ought to be an unsustainable bureaucracy. And every time they're given a lot of money, everyone says, well, that's it for a bit. But it isn't. And now they're looking apparently for another £7 billion. You know, we're talking serious money here. And I think that what Steve Barclay has, the health secretary, has decided to do is to come out fighting and to just put out the facts, because the danger for us is that the NHS becomes a form of religion. Now, the thing about religion,
I think it already is.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. We won't go into contentious religious issues, but I think we can say, with a lot of the things that have gone on with religious organisations and what's happened to children and so on, that if you become a religion, you are not then subject to scrutiny in the way that you should be. And I think that the NHS has got away for too long without being properly scrutinised. But as more and more and more money is consumed by the NHS without any particular evidence that it's getting more efficient and more effective, but it's certainly getting better paid.
Oh, well, let us know your thoughts at home on that. We'd be lost without it, or would we? Whether or not big questions need to be asked about the future of the NHS.
Yeah, and we've got nurses striking, haven't we? And then people on £100,000 a year. It's remarkable, really, isn't it? But Emma, David, thank you so much.
Thank you.